Alright, let's talk autistic history and the Autism Wars. This is part 18. I'm going to pick back up here in 1993 where we left off last time in sharing autistic activist Jim Sinclair's article titled "Don't Mourn for Us," that was originally rejected by the ASA in 1992 but was accepted in the Canada International Autism Conference by Autism Society Canada. So I'm just going to pick up where we left off. Back up just a little bit to autism is not an impenetrable wall. Did I say that right? Alright, so you can try to relate to your autistic child and the child doesn't respond. He doesn't see you, you can't reach her, there's no getting through. That's the hardest thing to deal with, isn't it? The only thing is, it isn't true. So look at it again. You try to relate as a parent to child using your own understanding of normal children, your own feelings about parenthood, your own experiences, and intuitions about relationships. And the child doesn't respond in any way you can recognize as being part of that system. That does not mean the child is incapable of relating at all. It only means you're assuming a shared system, a shared understanding of signals and meanings that the child in fact does not share. It's as if you tried to have an intimate conversation with someone who has no comprehension of your language. Of course the person will understand what you're talking about, won't respond in the way you expect, and may well find the whole interaction unpleasant and confusing. It takes more work to communicate with someone whose native language isn't the same as yours. And autism goes deeper than language and culture. Autistic people are foreigners in any society. You're going to have to give up your assumptions about shared meanings. You're going to have to learn to back up to levels more basic than you've probably thought about before, to translate and to check to make sure your translations are understood. You're going to have to give up the certainty that comes of being on your own familiar territory, of knowing you're in charge, and let your child teach you a little of her language. And the outcome, if you succeed, still will not be a normal parent-child relationship. Your autistic child may learn to talk, may attend regular classes in school, may go to college, drive a car, live independently, have a career, but will never relate to you as other children relate to their parents. Or your autistic child may never speak, may graduate from a self-contained special education classroom to a sheltered activity program or residential facility, may need lifelong full-time care and supervision, but is not completely beyond your reach. There are ways we relate, the ways we relate are different. Push for the things your expectations tell you are normal. You'll find frustration, disappointment, resentment, maybe even rage and hatred. Approach respectfully without preconceptions and with openness to learning new things, and you'll find a world you could never have imagined. And yes, that takes more work than relating to a non-autistic person, but it can be done unless non-autistic people are far more limited than we are in their capacity to relate. We spend our entire lives doing it. Each of us who does learn to talk to you, each of us who manages to function at all in your society, each of us who manages to reach out and make a connection with you is operating in alien territory, making contact with alien beings. We spend our entire lives doing this, and then you tell us we can't relate. Autism is not death. Granted, autism isn't what most parents expect or look forward to when they anticipate the arrival of their child. What they expect is a child who will be like them, who will share their world and relate to them without requiring intensive on-the-job training and alien contact. Even if their child has some disability other than autism, parents expect to be able to relate to that child on the terms that seem normal to them. And in most cases, even allowing for the limitations of various disabilities, it is possible to form the kind of bond the parents had been looking forward to. But not when the child is autistic. Much of the grieving parents do is over the non-occurrence of the expected relationship with an expected normal child. This grief is very real, and it needs to be expected and worked through so people can get on with their lives. But it has nothing to do with autism. What it comes down to is that you expected something that was tremendously important to you, and you look forward to it with great joy and excitement. And maybe for a while, you thought you actually had it. And then, perhaps gradually, perhaps abruptly, you had to recognize that the thing you looked forward to hasn't happened. It isn't going to happen. No matter how many other normal children you have, nothing will change the fact that this time, the child you waited and hoped and planned and dreamed for didn't arrive. This is the same thing that parents experience when a child is stillborn or when they have a baby to hold for a short time only to have it die in infancy. It isn't about autism. It's about shattered expectations. I suggest that the best place to address these issues is not in organizations devoted to autism, but in parental bereavement counseling and support groups. In those settings, parents learn to come to terms with their loss, not to forget about it, but to let it be in the past where the grief doesn't hit them in the face every waking moment of their lives. They learn to accept that their child is gone forever and won't be coming back. Most importantly, they learn to not to take out their grief for the lost child on their surviving children. This is of critical importance when one of those surviving children arrived at a time the child being mourned for died. You didn't lose a child to autism. You lost a child because the child you waited for never came into existence. That isn't the fault of the autistic child who does exist, and it shouldn't be our burden. Now I'm going to wrap this up here and in the next video finish this article that was shared by Jim Sinclair in 1993 at the International Autism Conference in Toronto. And thank you for joining me and learning a little bit more about autistic history.